Well, guys, we're back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 107. And what are today's topics?
Polls and funding shows it's not Joever. Iran and France elections. Democrats admits 2020 was rigged against Bernie. Bush makes fun of Abolish police movement. Russian assassination attempt on German arms manufacturer CEO foiled. Russia attacks Children's Hospital and all the evil policies that Project 2025 wants to do.
Oh boy, so much things to talk about in such little time. So, of course, we should probably get to the non-video stuff first, as always. So, what do you want to talk about first?
Okay, what ones we got here? That'll be Project 2025, I'm guessing.
That's one of them, so I guess we'll start off with that. So, of course, I actually saw earlier on Twitter, because something I wanted to cover for a while, but I had to find the picture and all that, and I finally found it, so I might upload it in a moment. But it covers all the horrible things Project 2025 is going to do, as I upload that to the server if it'll load, because it's a weird file, you might have to press on it. But it loads up just fine on Discord, as there it is. So did it load up for you?
Yep, it's loaded for me.
Alright, so if Trump wins and Project 2025 gets away with everything they want, this is what they'll do. 1, end no-fault divorce, so prevent women from being able to divorce if they so want to, because God forbid, if you get abused, you're supposed to just deal with it, don't you know? Complete ban on abortions without exceptions, which of course...
And don't forget that could also extend to include remember that North Carolina Republican who tried to put up legislation that not only
kill people,
complete
kill
ban
women
without exceptions, but also legalize murdering women who would seek abortions.
Yeah,
probably want that as well.
Yeah, that one's gonna probably be hard to do because the Supreme Court pretty much said it was a state ruling. So, and of course, without Republican control of the House and Senate, they're not gonna be able to do that either. And looks like right now that's not gonna happen. So that one is gonna be very difficult to do. A lot of these are probably gonna be very difficult to do, even if Trump wins. But even if it's difficult, that doesn't mean we can't ignore it. We gotta bring it up forever. 2, ban contraceptives. So if you want to if you want to fuck, you can only do it to have kids, and that's it. But of course, this is like a 90% against it, for crying out loud. Like over 90% of Americans, even Republicans, support using contraceptives. Like this one, they're going to lose everyone. And then additional tax breaks on corporations at the end of 1%. Of course, rigged economy in favor of them. Socialism for rich, but rugged capitalism for the poor. Of course, and of course, this is absolutely stupid. It needs to be other way around. They need to be taxed at 90%. How about that? And no billionaires tax. All base stuff. And then 2, higher taxes for the working class. Of course, rugged individual capitalism for them. Pull them up by their bootstraps. And then elimination of unions and worker protections,
which would basically lead to just minority workers being regularly just murdered on work sites.
They want slavery back of everyone. Let's go.
That's what they want.
Then raise the retirement age, which of course a lot of countries, including you, Macron, when we covered last year, whatever, trying to raise the retirement age, which is bullshit. 2, cut Social Security. And want to get rid of it, which is bad, which would be bad for my family, because that's my main income is my mom's Social Security, so that would actually negatively affect me. Then cut Medicare, which is also very important and unacceptable because both my parents need that. Then end the Affordable Care Act. I'm surprised it's even still around after what Trump did years ago. I'm surprised it's even still around, but of course that's wrong and evil. Then raise prescription drug prices, of course, because gotta keep people suffering, you know.
Up to $1 million.
Yep. Eliminate the Department of Education because we can't have Americans become smarter because it goes against their narrative, and of course make it less likely they'll get Republicans will get more votes if people are uneducated. Then use public use public taxpayer money for private religious schools. Unconstitutional.
Of course, indoctrinated to fundamentalist religions or sexually abusing them.
Yep, unconstitutional. Separation of church and state, can't do that.
They want to abolish the Constitution, remember?
Yep, Trump wants to do that, which of course I think we're going to get to that in a little bit. Of course, once again, teach Christian religious beliefs in public schools. Again, separates the church and state. Can't do that. And what about non-Christians, pals? Oh, that's right. You want them all killed.
Yep, and
civil rights and DEI protections in government. Again, once racism...
Repeal the Civil Rights Act.
Because they want racism, people. Ban African-American and gender studies in all levels of education. Yeah, so you can't learn about history of gender, racism, and all that. But of course, remember, they wanted... Oh, we're actually going to get to that right afterwards. Ban books of curriculum about slavery. because they don't want you to learn about slavery, because America was very bad on it. That's going to be kind of awkward. How are they going to talk about the Civil War, how it's good and all that, if they can't bring up slavery? Oh, wait, that's right. They're going to probably try to ignore it at all costs.
Of course they do. Of course they ignore it.
Ending climate protections. Yeah, when we have a massive heat wave going through and all that, that's a smart idea right now, of course.
Yeah.
Evil. Increase Arctic drilling. No, that's evil.
No, definitely not.
Deregulate big business oil industry, which, again, we kind of already covered. So, deregulation, of course. Promote and expedite capital punishment. So they want
so just go around murdering. So basically, just arrest, kidnap, and murder.
Want to bring back the death penalty at all costs because they're so pro-life, don't you know? So pro-life that they want to kill people. End marriage equality, which we kind of already covered. Of course, want to ban gay marriage. Of course, like they're going to do that when over 70% of Americans support it. It would go even worse than when they got rid of Roe v. Wade. And you saw how bad happened for them. Condemn single mothers while promoting only traditional families. First off, pretty much American society already condemns single mothers. So they're already doing what you want. It's already tough for them. And no, not every family wants to be like that, pal. Deal with it.
Exactly.
Gee, I wonder how they'd feel about if a traditional family doesn't want to get married, though. That would probably get them very angry.
That too.
Yep, they'd probably ban that. Defund the FBI and Homeland Security because, of course, you want terrorism to happen to demonize Muslims
they
and all
love
that.
terrorism.
And also, you want Trump to get away with everything, of course, because you're a bunch of authoritarian cunts. Use the military to break up domestic protests. So, be against the First Amendment, people, as always, like Trump tried to do. Absolutely unacceptable. Go to Russia or China if you want that, you pro-Russia and China pieces of shit. Mass deportation of immigrants and incarcerate them in camps. Oh, so we're gonna do what we did to Japanese Americans, huh? Yeah. So you want to do
what about Nazism?
Yep. Want to do the exact same thing we did to Japanese Americans and all that. Also, that would be very bad for the economy. But I guess that's right. You're already doing all the shit that's destroying the economy anyway. So I guess you're gonna keep doing it and all that. Then end birthright citizenship. Of course, if you're born here, you're automatically American citizen. Too bad. Deal with it. Nothing wrong with that. Ban Muslims from entering the country. Of course, Islamophobia. Gee, I wonder what you'll do with all the... Oh, that's right. You're going to kill all the Muslims that are already here. That's right. I forgot about that. Eliminate federal agencies like the FDA, EPA, NOAA, and more. FDA.
Eliminate all of the federal agencies and just give everything to Donald Trump.
Yep. Get rid of making drugs safer. Get rid of environmental protections. And, of course, NOAA... keeps track of weather forecasts too. So gee, they want to be against weather forecasting apparently. How stupid can you be? Oh, and finally, continue to pack the Supreme Court and lower courts with right-wing judges. Well, they haven't packed the Supreme Court in terms of how we want Biden to do it. They haven't done that yet, but in terms of putting,
but know that they just want to get rid of all the liberal judges and just put conservative judges in that'll make Donald Trump king.
So yeah, guys. All these policies right here are absolutely unacceptable, and this is going to be a big reason also why Trump could, and hopefully will, and I still think will, lose. Because these policies are, not only are they bad, but almost all these are vastly unpopular with Americans. If they did any of these things, they're going to tank really badly. Like we all saw when Roe v. Wade was taken away, how badly they tanked afterwards. They lost an entire election because of that. And they're probably going to lose again because of it. Every time a pro-choice referendums came up, we've won every time. So this is a terrible thing, and this is going to be a reason why Trump will hopefully lose, because this is unacceptable. So what do you got to say about this?
Pretty terrible stuff. And that's only some of it. And that's only for some of it. That all that things like same-sex marriage, interracial marriage, and all of that are under threat as well.
Oh my God, that reminds me. When I finally found that picture, it was actually Project 2025's Twitter replying to it, doing a long thread, going, everything on this list is incorrect, and we're going to list every single example. Oh my God, it was so full of cope, too. Oh my God, let's see if I can find for you to laugh at later.
Oh boy.
Because I reacted to it and all that as we get ready for the next thing. And of course, thank you for not showing up when I need you to. Thank you very much. So yeah, absolutely unacceptable. So I guess now, as I try and look for it still, on to the next topic. And there's only there's only one left that's not a video, and that would be the first one on the list.
Polls and funding shows it's not Joever.
Now, before we get to that,
it's still Joe difficult, but it's still He's still in Joe trouble, but it's not Joever yet.
And first off, there's the tweet if you want to look at later. Project 2025, we're trying to refute every single thing that we listed. Oh my god. Fucking idiots. Alright, so of course, now guys, on to the next topic, of course. It's not Joever. So of course, we're continuing on with discussion that people on the left have been having for the last few weeks after Biden's stupidity in the debate and how brain dead he was. And now it got amplified recently because last night, I think it was, he actually did a national speaking thing. And, oh my god, he made a fool of himself. He called Zelensky Putin.
Oh, I remember that.
Now, thankfully, and no one points this out, which needs to be pointed out, he did correct himself soon afterwards. Like, he did correct himself. Whereas Trump, of course, I saw a video of Abolish earlier, he called, he said Orban was the leader of Turkey. And did Trump correct himself? No. No. But Biden does, but no one points it out. But yeah, that's still pretty dumb. But that's not even the worst one. People were asking, one of the interviewers were asking him, what about, like, Kamala Harris polling, like, very well compared to you against Trump and all that? And he actually said multiple times, and he didn't correct himself, that his vice president is Trump.
I remember that, yes.
Oh, God. And he didn't correct himself. You can't defend him on that. Come on. Howard, I'm not surprised because you're so brain dead, but still. Oh, my God. So, yeah, people have been making fun of him about that and all that and why he needs to go and all that. But, of course, we got to provide the counter-argument. Hey, if all of you are going to act like Biden has no chance of winning and still have never covered Trump with his lies and all that, then we're going to have to bring the counter-argument as, like, a counter for all that, because I can't stand this bull crap. First off, there's been polls now, of course, people have covered like polls, oh, Biden's doing horrible in all these states after all debates. Actually, Sahil's covered this, and even Kyle, believe it or not, has actually covered a video recently. There are some states where Biden is actually doing better now after the debate. Yes, better. So guess what? It's still in the realm of like a close election that Biden can still damn win. And also, after the debate, did you know that the Democrats actually got like tens of millions of dollars from donations and such?
Oh, wow.
They have been pretty much obliterating Trump in terms of donations. So they got a massive war chest. They can use that to help take down Trump and all that and run ads everywhere and such. Like, the RNC... a lot of ways, and a lot of states have been like almost bankrupt because of Trump's stupidity. Ooh. Like, they don't have a lot of money to fund themselves. And unfortunately, as we saw with IPAC when they did the Bowman and the Attorney, all of them, if the Democrats have all this money and the Republicans don't have anything enough, Democrats could just flood the airways of how bad Trump is and all that, and maybe try to promote the good things about Biden or such. So they have the money situation that they could do. And then here's another argument, because people have been still crying about Biden needs to withdraw so another Democrat replace him. Well, that's not happening. Biden's not withdrawing. He's already said that. And as time goes on, it's going to be even less likely they're going to do that. So you're going to have to accept the fact he's going to be there until he's dead or something. He's going to be the nominee no matter what. And second of all, even if he did drop out, it's going to be Kamala. There's no other option. Especially since Dylan and I think others pointed out.
And Kamala's like very unlikable.
Yeah, she probably would actually lose to Trump. She would have had to hope.
She would lose. She'd lose to all Republicans.
She would have to hope that people hate Trump that much that they'll just say fuck it, just vote for her. Like, I probably will as long as he's running. Like, that's like her only option. Oh, another option.
You know ideas. Michigan is basically equal, basically level.
Yeah, and that's
between Biden and Trump.
And I think that Wisconsin were the states that Biden did better after debates.
Yep. A couple of states they drifted out a bit, and now they've come back together. Though he's still nearly 4% behind, he's closing in Georgia. Wisconsin's like a little bit swinging, like 1% Trump, 1% Biden.
Yeah, that was one state.
Unfortunately, he's still losing ground in Pennsylvania. PA's still going down. But yeah.
And another miracle thing for Kamala that can help her is that, hey, she's not Biden. She's not completely brain dead. She's bad when it comes to policies, but she's not brain dead, and that's like the big thing that's hurting Biden at the moment. So it's like two things are helping her. But yeah, it's going to be Kamala because I didn't get to bring this up yet. According, I think it was Dylan Burns and someone else covered, She is legally the only other person that has the access to Biden's economic war chest during the election. So if any other Democrat, replaced Biden besides Kamala, they would have to get their own fundraisers and all. They would have to use their own money. They couldn't use the war chest that the Democrats accumulated during this election. So if you want them use that money to get ads out, you're going to have to rely on Kamala otherwise if it's not Biden. So I hate to break the news to you. And of course, we all know damn well they're going to pick Kamala if it's Biden drops out. There's no way they're going to not pick her. Like, come on, people.
Yeah.
But in the end, he's not going to drop out. At least I don't think so. And we'll see in the future if he will or not. But I don't think it's going to happen. And yeah, but the point is, it's not Joe Ever. As long as y'all keep acting like Biden has no chance to win, we're going to be the opposite of, no, he has a chance to win, and I still think he's going to win. Because guess what? People keep ignoring this at all costs, and it's starting to get on my nerves even more every day. Trump has major flaws that people refuse to point out. And the reason why people are going to vote for Biden, because Trump is so fucking bad. For God's sake, I don't know what is wrong with these people. So yeah, what do you guys say about this?
Like I said, Joe Biden is in trouble, but it's not over. And anyway, I've been looking around a couple of polls. Apparently, early indications, Kamala is tied with Trump.
Yeah,
and Gavin Newsom is winning.
Yeah,
by 2 points.
Yeah, I think we covered last time that Kamala was actually starting to do better than Trump now in the polls. Although I still don't trust her against him, though. But,
yeah, I don't.
But she does have 2 massive advantages that help her and all that. Well, actually, 3 with the war chest and all that. But have to wait and see. But it's not Joe Ever, people. Stop acting like Biden has no chance to win. You guys are literally acting like all the people back in 2016 that thought Trump had no chance to win against Hillary. Oh shit, you got proven wrong. You act like the exact same people, unfortunately, including us too, that thought Biden had no chance to win the nomination in 2020 after he did terrible in the last 3 debates and it looked like Bernie was going to win, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But unfortunately, he did win the nomination. We all thought that Biden was going to have no chance to beat Trump early on in the election when he got the nomination. But, of course, he did win because Trump sucked, COVID, and all that. And you all thought, everyone thought that the Republicans were going to win in a sweep in the midterms 2 years ago. But we kept warning you all, Roe v. Wade's going to change everything. Even though all the way up to October, the polls kept saying, Republicans are going to win a landslide. Republicans are going to win a landslide. And it didn't happen. So, you need to wait and see. There are so many things that are hurting the Republicans that they could backfire immensely. So, all right. So now, on to the next topic.
I start on the videos. Iran and France elections.
Yeah. So, of course, Iran, remember, with their president dying back in May, they had to have a special election coming up, which I'm sure they're going to probably have another election in 2025. So, oof, I feel bad for their interim for only being for like a year or so. But they had an election course, and of course, in Iran, there's like 2 options. It's either like the Islamic jihadist fundamentalists, which the last president was, or a moderate like Hassan Rouhani's party before. And thankfully, the best case scenario happened as the moderate won. And not only that, seemed to have won in a pretty big blowout because they had the jihadists split the vote. I think that's what happened because we're going to cover it again. But the moderate one, it's still not ideal, but for Iran's sake, it is the best we're going to get. So let's see Kyle's video on it.
All right, guys. So we had an election.
Of course, accidentally hit that.
Election in Iran the other day. I'm a few days late to this, but I think it's important, and I wanted to share it with you here. So we had an election in Iran. Remember, the previous president died in a helicopter crash. He was a hardliner. So he was going to be more standoffish across the board. He was going to be more in favor of the Revolutionary Guard and the Grand Ayatollah.
Thank you, Trump and Biden, for helping him win, too.
He was not like the previous president, Hassan Rouhani. Rouhani was more of a moderate. It was under Rouhani that we got the Iranian nuclear agreement. And unfortunately, the U.S. sort of gave a boost to the hardliners in Iran.
Yeah, they really fucked over Rouhani.
And the
moderate parties, too.
Because they agreed to a deal with us. We violated the deal. We slapped them across the face. We murdered Qasem Soleimani. Trump murdered Qasem Soleimani. And so, the moderates look kind of stupid. And the hardliners were like, I told you, you can never deal with the United States of America. They're liars. They're the great Satan, right? And
it's more like Trump's the liar.
It looked like...
yeah, exactly.
Basically, a new hardliner era was ushered in. That's what it looked like. with, what was his name, Raisi? Yeah, Ibrahim Raisi.
And then he died in a helicopter
And that's a
crash.
shame, because, you know, right-wingers beget more right-wingers. Neocons beget more neocons. Warmongers beget more warmongers, right? If one side is going to be obstinate, the other side is going to respond by being obstinate. What you need is people who are willing to talk and negotiate and use diplomacy on both sides. That's how you get us out of a mess. That's how you de-escalate and get us out of war. So they had elections, and guess what, man? Shock victory, yet again, for the left candidate, the relatively left candidate.
I wouldn't say they're left, Kyle. They're moderate. They're just not going to be. They're not going to be hardcore jihadists,
left.
basically. They're not They're
Well,
not
maybe
hardcore
relatively
jihadists.
left.
Maybe they're the leftist option in Iran, but they're not left. Like, let's not get full of ourselves.
Candidate, progressive relative to the context of Iranian elite politics, right? So guys,
They don't want
we've
to
been
go
seeing
full
this now
jihadists.
in a number of elections.
Yeah.
It happened in Mexico. They went with the left
And maybe they're
candidate.
more
It happened
willing
in the UK.
to
They went
work
with the
with
Labour Party
America
over
on
the
the-
Conservatives.
the
The Labour Party's not really
nuclear
left,
deal.
but they're
Yep.
better than Conservatives, right? It happened in France.
And maybe
The
not
far
try to do
left
stupid
coalition
shit
beat
with
the far
Israel,
right.
the Palestinian war, and all that.
We're now seeing this in a
Exactly,
number of
yeah.
different places. There's a bit of, seems like a rising tide of common sense that's taking over. So in Iran, no different, man, no different. So Masoud Pezeshkian is now going to be the Iranian president. Let's watch this little
Got
video here, and I'll break it
53%
down
of
for
the vote.
everybody.
And says on the thing right here, and has promised to bring moderation back to the government, but what reforms will he be?
I'll read the text that's on the screen for people who are just listening audio podcast style, and you'll learn a little bit about this guy. Iran has elected a new president, Masoud Pezeshkian.
53% of the vote.
The 69-year-old was the sole moderate candidate permitted to run.
Yeah, Iran, just like Russia, they actually limit who can run, even with their multi-parties. If you're too far off the spectrum, you can't run all that. So he was the only moderate that was able to run.
Oh, would you look at that?
Oh.
The only one, and he won. He says, I consider your vote as a heavy responsibility on my shoulders, and I pledge to continue to be a listen.
I'm quite curious. I wonder how they're going to treat his term, because they do have term limits like America, 4 years and all that. Since it's been over 2 years into the last president's term, I wonder if he's going to potentially run for like 10 years potentially, if you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
Listening ear for your words and
And
a
remember,
voice
they
for the
got election
voiceless and
2025,
rejected.
so he doesn't have much time to try and save himself.
He has promised more liberties, social justice, and equal rights.
Well, that's very good, because Iran really badly needs that. And just so you all...
they do, absolutely do need it.
And by the way, guys, I think I've mentioned before, but Iranians are actually... The people are actually pro-America and actually kind of liberal. It's the government that's not. That's the problem.
For 40 years, we have wanted to fix the issue of the hijab. This is
And by the way, for all of you who don't know, that was a big protest that happened like last few years in Iran.
I remember that.
Where,
That was...
when women not only, of course, are forced to wear the hijab if they don't want to, but they've gotten recently beaten and killed because that led to a massive protest. And like I said, Iranians are more liberal than people realize. They're probably up there as like one of the more liberal people in the Middle East, believe it or not, despite all the propaganda America does for it.
him giving a speech, or whatever the government men want, with respect to women. In all honesty, have we fixed it or made it worse? Worse. I promise our daughters, sisters, and mothers who are subject to unfair treatment on the streets that I will put a stop to all of that unfair behavior. So
for a modern, he actually sounds very progressive.
Pezeshkian acknowledges he faces an uphill battle in a conservative parliament.
Of course.
I'm telling all those who didn't vote or turn out in this
He's gonna get
election,
the Obama
now it's time to
treatment,
see
looks
you
like.
and hear you.
Yep.
And of course, they're
Pezeshkian
blown
is
because
close
of
to
Trump.
Iran's
Thank you
former
very
foreign
much,
minister,
Trump, for that.
Mohammad Javad Zarif. He helped with the Iranian nuclear deal. He supports diplomatic engagement with the U.S. to resume nuclear talks.
That's good, but of course, America has to budge on, because that's one thing Biden has not done. We thought, maybe Biden comes in, maybe we'll get back to the Iran deal quickly, because that's what Obama's accomplishment. That's something Biden would take credit for, but nope, still hasn't done it yet.
And has pledged to get Western sanctions removed.
Well, I don't know if you're going to get them all removed. You know how America comes with that. But if you really want to help, here's something you could do. How about stop helping Russia with drones and all that against Ukraine? That would be very based.
Yep.
We must break this dam of sanctions. We must ruin those who benefit from sanctions. those who benefit in the thousands of billions. He's going against the elites in Iran. From these sanctions, and nobody knows. We will stand against them. Pezeshkian is an Iranian Azeri Kurd from West Azerbaijan province. He served as a doctor and medical supervisor during the Iran-Iraq War. In 1993, his wife and youngest son were killed in a car accident. That's not unlike Biden. Pezeshkian never remarried and raised his 3 other children alone. He was health minister in Khatami's reformist government and then a parliamentarian. Khatami was a relatively left candidate. He has emphasized his loyalty to Iran's revolution, because you have to in order to run, and will try to reassure Iran's elites that he won't disrupt the system. Look, the system is rigged in the sense that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and the Grand Ayatollah,
let's just say he
they
has
literally
a full support
give the
by and large
options
right
and say
now.
this person can
He
run, this
needs all
person
the
can't
support
run.
he can.
So
he's going to
he
get
was
the
one of
Obama
the pre-approved
treatment.
candidates,
They're
because
gonna
they're
block it at
all
all costs.
pre-approved candidates, right? But relative to everybody else,
And remember,
he was
he
by
has
far
less
the
than
most
a year
liberal.
to try and get everything
By
sorted
far
out
the
for
most
the next
moderate.
election.
By far the most willing to engage in peace talks. By far the most willing to
So the monarch's in a
secularize
really difficult
Iran
spot once again.
in a
Let's see.
slow but sure kind of fashion. You know, there's only so far you can go without, you know, the religious leaders sort of revolting, right? But on paper, by far the best candidate. Now, here is the devastating reality, though. The way things are going right now, Trump is a 70% favorite to get reelected in this country.
Kyle, I wouldn't go that far, pal. They ain't probably no 70%. It's more like 50-50, pal. Like, don't start with this crap.
And if this guy is the president of Iran, tries to open diplomatic negotiations, he's going to run into a fucking brick wall. Going to run into a brick wall. Now, understand...
I mean, they still had, like, negotiations, all that with the hardliners in, so I don't know how necessarily that's going to make it tougher.
The Democrats have not been good, certainly under Biden, when it comes to this issue. They have not been good. But Trump is worse. He's the guy who ripped up the Iranian nuclear agreement. He's the guy who smacked Iran across the face and spit in their eye and said, I know you've been following this agreement. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to violate the agreement. I'm going to rip it up. I'm going to put more sanctions on you. I'm going to assassinate Qasem Soleimani, who was on the ground fighting ISIS at the time. And so Trump packed his administration with neocons. John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, Gina Haspel, and they did neocon shit. They did warmonger shit. And so now, if he gets back in there, there's no reason to believe it would be any different at all. So I feel horrible for this guy, because in all good faith, he can come out and try to make a new deal and try to get us back from the brink of war, and he's probably going to hit a fucking brick wall if Trump
And he's
is
got
in there.
less than a year,
I mean, it'd be
too.
hard enough with Biden. Because Biden said when he ran, I'm going to get us back in the Iranian nuclear agreement, and he didn't do it. So it's hard enough with Biden. But Trump, without a doubt, is going to be even worse, and it would be even harder to make a new deal. Honestly, this was one of the best things Obama did, was the Iranian nuclear agreement, by far. And then fucking Trump fucked it up, and Biden the idiot came in and said he would get back in and didn't. And so now, look, I just hope, again, that the moderates don't end up looking dumb, and it doesn't lead to a rise in the far right again. You know? So take yes for a fucking answer. People want to make peace. People want to make a deal. For the love of God, make peace. Make a deal. And I'm genuinely shocked that a moderate won in this day and age, because we know the tensions right now with Israel. We know Israel wants to go to war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. We know what they're doing to Hamas right now. We know there's been tit-for-tat fights with Iran. You guys remember all that happened recently? My guess would have been they would circle the wagons, break out the flags, and say, fuck it. If you guys are going to be psycho right-wingers, we're going to elect our own insane psycho right-wingers to combat you. Right? But that didn't happen. So massive, massive credit to the people of Iran, man. Massive credit to them. No matter how much they've, been tricked and deceived and screwed over by the West, people are just desperate for peace. They're desperate for peace, man. And they're trying so hard to get it. So I hope it's not in vain. I hope we can get some reasonable leaders here and we can get back to sanity and we can make another deal with them. They're not the problem. Iran is not the fucking problem. They've never been the problem. They've never been the fucking problem. To the extent anybody prioritizes, we have to end radical Islamic extremism. Well, motherfucker, Saudi Arabia is the worst. They're the Salafists. They're the Wahhabists. They're the ones with the extremists.
Outside of Iran's, destabilizing the Middle East when they do stuff with Israel, outside of that, Iran is better than Saudi Arabia. I know a lot of people are not going to like hearing it, but Saudi Arabia is the worst.
Mosques that preach hate.
Yeah.
They're the problem. Iran is a relatively young country, and the attitudes are relatively secular. They just have an ancient fucking government of fossils that are Shia clerics and extremists, right? They're not the problem. Shia jihad is not a thing that's happening now. It's always the extremist Sunnis that are doing it.
Not
That's
as bad
Saudi
as
Arabia.
the Saudi Arabian
So anyway, there you have it.
terrorist organization.
Yet again, just like we talked about the good news in the French election the other day, this is good news coming out of Iran. Hey y'all, do me a favor
And we're about to cover that in a moment. So what do you guys say about that so far? First off, Iran. Good, and good. But of course, they got he's got less than a year, and the far right are going to try and stop him at all costs, which is unfortunate. But he's got our support for right now, at least. Hopefully, can be able to do stuff. Now, for France, of course, they did a snap election after the most recent EU elections, where the far right actually made some gains in the EU. And everyone thought, Macron made a fatal mistake doing this and such, and that the far right were going to win. Well, in the first runoff, the far right actually were winning at first, and looked like that they actually might get the majority in France's equivalent to Congress. But nope. Yeah. But nope. The most left party in power, and Macron's centrist party actually worked together, and they did where if whoever was losing one of their districts, they would drop out, so it would only be one versus the far right, and it absolutely worked to a dominating fashion, as the left-wing party is now the majority party in France, as Macron's party...
plurality party.
Yep, yeah, plurality. They have the majority of seats. Macron's party took a big decline, but they still have a big amount. And the far right didn't win, which, hey, is a W, and they're having a complete meltdown over it. Cope and sieve is what I would say. Yep. So, yeah, let's go see this.
So we got...
And also, this is not like a presidential election. This is like a midterm election, pretty much. Macron's still going to be president until 2027, so it wasn't
some
like an election.
Big news for everybody that dropped yesterday. I don't know how many of you were following the French election, but we had what people are calling a shock victory by what's called the far left coalition over the far right. So for those of you who don't know, Macron is a centrist, and he's governed France for quite a while now. A lot of people are not happy with him. He's kind of a classic neoliberal. I guess it's fair to call him
he's the ultimate neoliberal.
Obama.
Yes, he's the France. Perfectly.
And France historically is significantly to the left of the United States of America. So Macron's victory was sort of a shock, and he's governed for a while, and there's a lot of discontent, and so we just had elections, and what you saw was a surge in support for both the far right and the far left, but there was actually, in the first round of the elections, this is a parliamentary system, it's different, there was more support for the far right than there was for the far left. So they were already sort of celebrating, and they thought it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to win. But what happened is you had a strategic alliance between the far left and the center left, right? And, the people who are in Macron's party. And whoever couldn't win would drop out and endorse the other one. So in some instances, you had, the far lefty, if they were down to the centrist, in a given district, they would drop out and endorse the centrist, and vice versa, which is kind of shocking, I know, because you know that in the U.S., the center never coalesces with the so-called far left. They hate the far left.
Yeah, this is something that Democrats in power need to be forced to do. They need to be forced to concede to progressives. But, of course, that's what happens in America, where you don't have an actual left-wing party that can challenge Democrats.
But in this instance, many centrists, if they were behind the far left in the first round of the election,
they actually have a parliamentary system, and more importantly, Macron's party is not fully in power. It's like they have a right-wing party, a left-wing party, and a centrist party. They have like three parties right now.
They would drop out and endorse the far leftist, right? And so what ended up happening is...
So Macron's party, unlike Democrats, actually were forced to give concessions. Gee, if only we could force Democrats to do that.
The far left surged and ended up winning. So this is just, there's a little bit of a...
So yeah, they're equivalent to Congress. The left-wing party has 190 seats, which is the majority plurality, and they gained 59 seats. Macron's party lost almost 90 seats, for crying out loud, as they took a beating. Gee, Macron, maybe if you weren't such a neoliberal piece of shit, you wouldn't suck so bad and be losing. And of course,
maybe if you didn't want to metaphorically punch everyone in the face because they're not like you, you'd be okay.
the far right, of course, gained 44 seats, and the Republicans, which were France's original right-wing party, because it used to be
wiped out.
Yeah, it used to be because France, like up to like 10 years ago, actually had like a Labor Party somewhat and a Republican Party, which was like the conservatives. The Republican Party there is pretty much dead. The left is pretty much dead. They had to form this whole multiple like parties into one, and Macron swooped in and took over for a moment. So yeah, they actually have had a major like political party swing, unlike America, of course.
Breakdown here. Now, these numbers
Because
are not exact.
America's evil.
These are what the projections were early on, but this is roughly within the range of what it's going to be. So you're going to have 190 part of the Popular Front, which is the left coalition, the so-called far left coalition. The reason I say so-called far left, you'll see that in a minute. You have the Macronists are actually going to come in second with 163 seats. Then you have the far right, which again,
I hope this is a lesson to you,
won
Macron.
the first round,
you
was leading the first round, and they were convinced they were going to win the whole thing in the second round, right? They ended up finishing in third.
Well, you're not going to run next time, but you're going to enable the far right to win if you don't change immediately.
Which is
you got bailed
133 seats, and the Republicans, which is another right-wing group here, they finished with 65.
The original right-wing.
In other words,
pieces
the
of
left
shit.
gained 59 seats, the center lost 87, and the far right gained 44. So, huge news. Now, so what does this so-called far-left coalition believe in? Well, let's dive into that a little bit here.
The original Conservative Party actually is dead. They dissolved in 2015, so it's not even the same one.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. So the Republicans were the successor of their original Conservative Party. So there we go.
So they call themselves the New Popular Front, and they're a broad left-wing electoral alliance of political parties in France. They launched on June 10th, so very recently, in response to Snap 2024 French legislative election. The Front brings together a bunch of different groups. So there's like the Socialist group, the Socialist Party, the Environmentalist Party, the French Communist Party.
They had a Socialist
and several other left-leaning parties and groups.
Conservative Party's dead, and
here's what they say: while pushing for mobilization of associations, union forces, and civil society. The name is a reference to the old Popular Front, an electoral alliance that included communists which ruled France in the 1930s in order to prevent fascism or Nazism from winning an electoral majority. The Front's programs include scrapping the 2023 French pension reform law, which lowered people's pensions, and they hated it, increasing public sector salaries and welfare benefits, raising the minimum wage by 14%, and freezing the price of basic food items and energy. This would be funded by reintroducing a wealth tax.
Yep, very, very good.
Macron's not going to be happy about that, a wealth tax. He's going to be so mad.
For the wealthy and raising income tax on the highest earners.
1% Macron tax on Macron for being a dick fuck.
He is going to be mad, and guess what? The socialists are the majority plurality, so he kind of has to do what they say.
On other issues such as foreign policy, the Front's policies are closer to the center left. So they say that, but then if I type in here, let's type in Palestine. Okay.
Okay, now here's where it's going to be a little, unfortunately,
within the framework of a two-state solution, the Front's platform calls for France to recognize the state of Palestine. In fact,
that part,
Mélenchon, who's one of the leaders of this left-wing coalition, came out and said, "Oh, one of the things we're going to do is recognize a Palestinian state ASAP," and they want to enforce an arms embargo against Israel,
which is good.
Now they're not insane, so they still say, "Hey, October 7th." That was terrorism. They killed a lot of civilians. That's not okay.
Thank God they're not dumb.
But they want an arms embargo against Israel, and they want to recognize a Palestinian state. When it comes to the issue of Ukraine, I guess this is why they say they're, quote, center-left on foreign policy. But basically they're like, look, Ukraine's a sovereign country. Russia shouldn't have invaded it. That was wrong. It's hard to view that as just center-left. And
it says right here, because Kyle didn't cover it, that they would still support giving aid to Ukraine on it. Because I was a little concerned because Dylan Burns covered this, and he made it sound like that this National Front pretty much was indifferent to Ukraine like Kyle is. I'm like, that's a little concerning. Maybe this makes me feel a little bit better, because that's like the only thing I was concerned about.
Seems like common sense, right? You could think whatever you want to think about how we got to the point that Russia invaded Ukraine. And of course it's fair to bring up, hey, NATO is being provocative and aggressive by building up on Russia's border.
But it's also their fault for
at the
being
end of the
aggressive,
day,
which leads to
I think
people
every
wanting to
reasonable person agrees that Russia invading Ukraine is, of course, a massive overreach, and it's aggression, right? And so they recognize that, and I guess that's why their foreign policy is called center-left and not quote-unquote far-left, right? So anyway, looks pretty reasonable to me. Now, this is one of the things that the conservatives are freaking out about on Twitter. French leftist plan includes 90% top marginal income tax rate. France's leftist alliance would raise the top marginal income tax to 90% if it were to take over the government following legislative elections that run through July 7th. So, as you're all about to see, if you go on Twitter and you see right-wingers talking about this, none of them have any fucking idea what a marginal tax rate is.
Because
I love it
conservatives
every
are
time
stupid.
marginal tax
What
rate
else is
discussed,
new?
because I'm not sure I've
Conservatives
ever
are
seen a
always
conservative
stupid.
who actually knows what a marginal tax rate is, but they are super outraged by the thing that they don't understand in the slightest.
Because they don't like
So
good
what
things.
is a marginal tax rate? A
They
marginal
want
tax
bad
rate
things,
is
'cause they're
everything
evil.
above a certain line gets taxed at that higher rate, 90%. Now, usually there's also loopholes and deductions, so it's not effectively a 90% rate. It would effectively...
Basically, whatever money you make after a certain amount, that money afterwards is taxed by 90%.
probably be lower. Certainly that's the case in the U.S. I don't know how it is in France.
It's not, all your income is 90% taxed. No, at one point, it's taxed at whatever amount it is, and then after a certain amount, that's 90%.
I don't know if they have all the loopholes and deductions like we have here, but it's every dollar over a certain amount is what's taxed at 90%. So it's not what people think. Idiots will come out and say, the government's trying to take 90% of their money. That is just... if you think that, you're just wrong. Okay, you're just wrong, and you need to learn about what marginal tax rate is. Now, what's interesting is the line that they use. So, like I said, France is generally to the left of the United States of America, and it is reflected in when this rate kicks in. You would never see this in the United States of America. But, so the 90% rate would apply. The top rate would apply on taxable income over $440,000. $440,000. Now, in the U.S., we did have a time when we had very high marginal income tax rates, but the line was higher. It was at least over $1 million, right? In France, they say, basically, if you make over $500,000, everything over that $500,000 number, we're going to tax at 90%.
Based.
So that's a very, very progressive tax rate. Truth be told, that's actually to the left of where I am. I love the idea of a marginal tax rate that's super high like this, 70%, 90%, thereabouts, but I would probably kick it in more over if you made $5 million a year or $10 million a year. The other thing I support is a wealth tax, so that like a no billionaires tax. So everybody who's worth...
Okay, you're allowed exactly $1 billion. Every dollar you make over exactly $1 billion will be taxed a marginal rate of 100%.
If you can't live on $1 billion, then you just suck at living.
Or you just deserve to die, honestly.
$999,999. Every dollar above that, I'm fine with taxing at 100%. There should be no billionaires. The idea that, this person can't get by with $873 million. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Macron,
what are we doing?
Please give up and just
It's
let this
egregious
happen.
that we have any billionaires.
Macron, I know you're not going to like this because you're a neoliberal piece of shit, but if this happened, you let the left-wing parties do this, you're going to have a much better chance at your party having in the future in 2027. You need to cave.
By the way, reporting is, in the near future, we'll probably have our first trillionaires. So that's unacceptable, the massive income and wealth inequality, which has some people being homeless and other people can literally buy small countries. So anyway, you're going to see a lot of right-wingers have no idea.
Allied programs that literally are use more power than Africa and drain enough water to drain the Artesian Basin every day.
What a marginal tax rate is.
Maybe not every day, but like regularly drained the equivalent amount of water, equivalent to the amount of water that was in the Artesian Basin.
And that was called the Decade of Prosperity. The economy overall grew by 37% during the 1950s in the U.S., and unemployment remained low, about 4.5%.
This is not the 50s that conservatives want. That's what we want. No. They want the racism and the sexism and the homophobia.
The 50s they want is for black people and women to have no rights, for same-sex and interracial marriage to be banned, etc.
Beat up women and force them to blow me in the kitchen? That's base in their eyes.
At the end of the decade, the median American family had 30% more purchasing power.
Not allowed to wear anything except maybe a nude apron? Based, according to them.
They want to have the anime treatment, but force it.
Yep.
And then the maid outfit too.
And reduce it. In other words, even more disgustingly.
Oh no.
Probably reduce the age of consent to 6.
Oh no!
And you redistribute that.
But
It turns
they
out
have
it's very
Yeah.
good for the middle class and for the poor. What a shocker. If you tax the wealthy, you can take that money and do a lot of very based things with it. I know, crazy.
Macron dying in his sleep hearing that.
And I love this. This is amazing.
Yes.
New York Times,
Biden
quote,
and Trump, too.
while many in France cheered what appeared
Yeah.
to be a loss
Hey,
for
Trump,
the far
since you're
right,
such a
others
poor
were
bastard, maybe this
fearful
won't apply
of
to
what
you
the far
anymore.
left might bring. Here's the
Such a
terrifying stuff the
fraud.
far left is bringing you. The far left's proposed platform includes raising France's monthly minimum wage,
Base.
lowering the legal retirement age from 64 to 60,
Based.
building 1 million new affordable housing units in 5
Based.
years, and freezing the prices of basic necessities
based,
like food,
based,
energy, and
based,
gas.
based.
The state would also pay
Based.
households all costs associated with their children's education, including meals at cafeterias,
Based,
transportation,
based,
and extracurricular
based.
activities.
Keep it coming.
Instead of drastically
Our
cutting
bodies are
immigration,
ready.
as the far right had promised, the coalition pledged to make the asylum process more generous and smooth.
Make it easier for
The new Popular
immigrants,
Front has
base,
pledged to
and
come up
refugees.
with tens of billions of euros needed to pay for its programs by taxing wealthy individuals.
Oh, they're
It's
mad
time
about
to tax
that.
the
Let's
super
go.
rich and the super profits, said Mr. Faure to Cheers Sunday night. So that's the terrifying stuff that the left wants to do. Every single one of those things,
Terrifying
or
to
almost every
idiots,
single one of
based
those
to
things,
us.
has
Let's
a
go.
strong majority of support.
Exactly.
And not only
And they
is
have
that
the
case
plurality
in
majority.
France, but I bet in this
It's gonna be
instance
much
in the U.S.
difficult to
too,
stop
if you
them.
pulled those things,
Probably the only thing
they would have
that
a strong.
Probably the only way that could stop him is if either Macron does I guess a veto, I guess, or the centrist party of his betray us and go with the far right, which of course centrists do that, so that's something gotta watch out for. But Macron, if you value keeping the far right out, then you need to stop being neoliberal and let all these policies win.
Majority of support.
Exactly.
You need
by
to
the way,
cave.
what happens from here? It
You
actually,
piece of shit neoliberal.
we don't really know yet, right? We
Yep.
don't really know what happens from here because the prime minister came out, not the president. Macron is the president. The prime minister came out and said, I'm going to go ahead and step down. I'm going to go ahead and resign. And apparently, Macron said this morning, no, you're not. I reject your resignation. You're staying in power.
How can
So
you
it look-
reject someone who wants to resign? How is that even possible?
Yeah.
It's like
If
Macron
they say they want
is
to quit, how
trying
can
to
you
stay in
stop
power
them?
until 2027. The left coalition came out and said, you got to step down. Mélenchon came out and said, we have a mandate. Macron, you got to go. We're done with you, right?
Well,
so Macron is basically
Macron's not going to probably go. I don't know how it works in France, but I doubt he's going to go for
Yeah.
2027.
being defiant
Yep.
and saying, no, I don't want to do that. So now negotiations are going to happen in terms of finding a governing coalition.
Now this is
And-
where, to an American, this gets really weird, unstable to me. Oh my gosh.
Look, it's possible Macron steps down and the
That's-
left
I
coalition
don't
takes
think
over
that's gonna
and they
happen.
pick their president. It's also possible that
Pick the president? It's an election, Kyle. It's not like other parliamentaries where the parliament does control the prime minister. Come
Macron
on.
cuts a deal with the left, even though it looks unlikely right now because of the rhetoric coming from the left. And in that instance, even Macron, his hand would be forced to do more left-wing things, right? But it's also possible
Yes.
that even though Macron had, been slamming the far right and saying we got to do whatever we can to defeat the far right, it's also possible that you get a governing coalition that involves Macron, so the center, and the far right. And in that instance, Macron stays in power until 2027, and he would probably do even more conservative things. So at this point in time, I think any of those things are on the table. But the fact of the matter is, the so-called far left coalition did the best by far. And they absolutely should get their day. They should get their policies.
Yep.
They should get their president. And guess what? If you actually do that, this is how you defeat the far right for good. You don't defeat the far right with centrism. Centrism nurtures the far right. You defeat
Remember
the far
what
right
happened in 2022
with the
when he-
so-called
Yep.
far left.
He won, but he won 10% less votes than he had before.
Yep, I remember
centrism
that.
does not work. You need to go completely left wing to destroy fascism.
Which is really
That's how
just
you win every
policies
time.
that
Exactly.
help your average person and make them feel like they're not hopeless anymore. So really interesting stuff happening in France. Honestly, it was the best case scenario. And by the way, look, maybe this is a harbinger of things to come in the U.S. Maybe it is. Maybe
Yeah,
it's not.
Kyle, which
but
is
maybe it
why
is.
we keep telling you all, stop acting like Biden can't win. Stop.
Exactly.
You're all
He
acting like Cenk
can.
now. Stop. Cenk, Mikhail, remember you were on our side on this last year when Cenk made a
Yep.
complete fool of himself? Now you're all acting like him.
Yep.
Even Vosh is on his side now. It's like only Dylan Burns, like the only one left, and maybe David Packman, only one's everything like, no, Biden can still win, all that. It's pretty
Yeah,
bad.
also, and remember that David Pacman is a fucking
Democrat dick
Nazi
sucker.
terrorist.
He's a
He's
Democrat
one of the
dick sucker.
dinos. So, yeah.
It's pretty bad that Democrat dick suckers like Pac-Man, and somewhat Burns are the only ones left that saying that Biden could still win, and us. Like, come on, stop.
This.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter
It's
is,
very
in Mexico,
irritating.
the left-wing candidate won. In the UK, the Labour Party defeated the Conservatives.
Remember, that was because the conservatives fucked themselves over, not necessarily because Labor's really good, because the Labor Party is really not good.
Now we have in France, the so-called far left is defeating the far
Mexico,
right. And I think there's even one or two more
as
examples that I'm
well.
blanking on at the moment
Yep.
of the left winning. And in the case of France, remember, the far right had the lead in the polls in the first round, and everybody thought it was a
Like
foregone
Trump,
conclusion that
everyone
the
said
far
Trump
right
had the
would
lead in
win.
the
I
polls
actually
right
told you
now.
guys.
And
Yeah.
what could
Right
happen?
after that first round, it's possible the left win here. The left wins here,
Which is
some of the
why
centrists do
Biden
the
could
right
still
thing,
win.
and
So
that ended
shut
up.
up
Yes.
about saying
So-
Biden can't win.
Hey man, far right polling
bullshit.
leads. Everybody expects them to win, and then they implode, and the left wins. This has happened in enough.
Like, Trump can implode because he's a fucking idiot fascist who won't keep his stupid mouth shut, all his terrible policy and all that, and Project 2025 convictions, I can go on. Trump has worse problems than Biden, and no one talks about him.
One can only
Exactly.
hope that happens here as well. But the fact of the matter is, it's a little different when you have a president who's genuinely sundowning and sort of dragging the rest of the ticket down, the down ballot races down, and is sort of being defiant.
Hey, like Macron.
I don't know.
Look how bad he is.
I don't- I
Exactly, yes.
genuinely don't
Emmanuel
know.
Macron being a dumbass. Being Emmanuel Macron,
If anything,
evil.
Biden, despite being brain dead, might potentially even be better than Macron, believe it or not. And Macron's
That'd
not
be
brain
good.
dead. He's worse because he's a neoliberal. Biden is a neoliberal too, but sometimes does some left-wing things. Macron has none of that. That's
It's going to happen. But hopefully this is a harbinger of things to come, and
The funny thing is, of all these elections, outside of maybe the new president of Mexico, and maybe best case scenario, moderate Iran, Biden's better than all the other ones so far. Better than Starmer, better than Macron, which is wild.
see this be the case in the U.S. as well. Hey, y'all, do me a
Gee, I thought you Europeans were supposed to be better than America, remember? Oh,
Yeah.
What the hell's going on here? So yeah, what do you guys think about that too? Iran, good. France, very good. Even if Macron's still in power, hopefully it'll weaken him enough that he won't be able to keep doing his neoliberal bullshit. So, very good in that regard.
Yeah, he's going to have to form a coalition with lefties and have the lefties ahead, so...
Yep. And that
that's
means
good.
he has the caves to hide the dance. And you know, he's a neoliberal, so he's probably like, oh man, I'd rather deal with the fascists than you guys. Well, too bad.
Yeah.
You did the snap election, you helped us out, and now you're going to have to deal with it for the next 3 years. So, deal with it. Fucking piece of shit. Alright, so now, on to the next topic.
Democrats admit that the primaries are and will always be rigged.
Yep, so of course, as we already knew about this, but, god dang it, Mike from the Humans Report, I don't know why his name would come to my head, covered a video recently that one of the top Democrats admitted they only picked Biden in the primary to stop Bernie in 2020. But of course, we already knew that. We already knew it was rigged against him, just like it was in 2016.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see them
I
actually say
remember
that.
it's always going to be. Like it's always, all DNC elections are rigged.
All right, so let's see how this is.
A lot of Democrats are weighing in, mostly privately, but publicly also, about Biden and whether or not he should drop out. By the time most of you see this, if I turn this into a YouTube segment, there's probably going to be even more Democrats weighing in. But one thing that has been interesting to me that I didn't get to address in the videos on Biden that I did is Bernie 2020. So he's back. And it's specifically because of a comment that Biden made. So if you listen to Biden's phone call interview with Morning Joe, he basically tried to pretend like he was against the elites. He railed against the elites, which
Even
is
though
so
Biden
ironic
is the
for
elite.
him, of all people to say, because he is the president because the elites rallied around him, right? He got everyone to drop out and endorse him. Like Democratic Party.
And remember, guys, the first free elections in the primary, Biden did horrible in.
Did.
And Bernie won 2 of the free. It looked like Bernie actually had a chance to win to the point where even mainstream media was starting to act like, oh my god, Bernie actually might be able to win. But then South Carolina and Super Tuesday happened and all of it flipped. Which shows that even Biden...
Which they rigged.
Yep. But it also shows that even when Biden fucks up 3 states in a row, he still had a chance to win, and he went on to win all the way to the election. So that's why you can't underestimate him, which
Party
people keep
elites
doing.
like Barack Obama saw that he was the one Democrat that had a chance against Bernie Sanders after he landslided Nevada in 2020. And so Obama made calls for him. The elites in the media, they were doing everything they could to drive home this point that Biden was electable. Biden was electable. But
Which
now,
is false because Bernie did better in all the polls against Trump than Biden, so that was a false belief.
now the elites are actually being honest. It's long overdue, but they're being honest about Biden and the fact that he is not very electable. And so people are pointing that out. And it's really interesting. They're kind of saying the quiet part loud. So here's Chuck Rocha. He was actually... So he runs a super PAC now, I think, or a consulting firm. But he was part of Bernie's 2020 campaign. And listen to what he says.
Also say something that's very, I wouldn't say it's funny, I would say this very interesting, is the same elites that he talks about in my party were the same elites in 2016 in the presidential primary that said everybody had to come together behind him to beat Bernie Sanders when they demanded everybody drop out so that he could be the only person to beat Donald Trump. So I think it's ironic that he's telling people now, those same people that said we have to be with Joe Biden, that they could challenge him at the convention. So say something.
I just said all that. But yeah, he's absolutely correct. And to be fair, I watched this clip earlier, so I was probably just parroting what he said. But I mean, the points are points that a lot of us have already made, right? Joe Biden doesn't get to complain about the elites because he is the quintessential elite. The donor class love him. Remember the article from 2019, I believe, where Bernie was trying to rally based on Medicare for All. That was like one of his signature issues. And there's an article from Vox talking about how the healthcare industry, they're hoping that Biden is like their last defense against Medicare for All. So this dude is... he is an elite. So for him to say that is ridiculous. Now what's crazy is you have... Adam Smith, this is a centrist Democrat. This is somebody who is not a fan of Bernie, but the things that he admits here is so wild to me. None of this is surprising if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, but still, just hearing them say it is so funny.
I got to make one other point. So the president talked today about how now it's all the elites who are trying to force him out. Let's remember what happened in 2020. Okay, the president did not run a great primary campaign. He lost badly in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. He came out of Nevada, and Bernie Sanders looked like the presumptive nominee. And this exact same group of people,
the elites,
that the president is now deriding as elites. And by the way, they're not. They're Democrats, okay?
They are
party
elites, just like him.
They're donors, they're volunteers, decided, and to all the Bernie supporters out there, I'm not judging this positively or negatively, they decided they didn't want Bernie Sanders to be the nominee. They decided that Joe Biden would be the better nominee. And credit, again, to the president. He decided that because he did 8 years as vice president. He did the years in the Senate. He had the record to be a strong president. And so they, through their support behind Joe Biden, and Pete Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren and Mike Bloomberg and Amy Klobuchar, and I may be forgetting a few others, stepped aside for the candidate who was better.
I don't think Warren actually stepped aside at that point yet. That's what I think that's what we were criticized about, that she didn't drop out when she should have to coalesce around Bernie.
That somehow Joe
But the rest
Biden rescued us. It has been a nationwide movement since Donald Trump was elected president. And in 2020, that nationwide movement said, Joe, you're the best guy, let's go.
No, he wasn't.
Now, they don't think he is.
Okay, bit of a correction. Elizabeth Warren did not step aside. That was also deliberate because Elizabeth Warren was splitting the progressive vote.
She stayed in to sabotage Bernie, yes.
So there's a reason why Obama made some calls to Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar, but not Elizabeth Warren. It's because her remaining in the race was essential to make sure Biden was able to at least reach a plurality and beat Bernie Sanders, because she was pulling more votes from Bernie Sanders, if I'm remembering correctly, than anyone else. And even though she embarrassed herself and came in third in her own home state of Massachusetts, what she did served the very important purpose of defeating Bernie Sanders. So, yeah. And to be clear, it was the elites that defeated Bernie Sanders in 2020. It was Democratic Party leaders that kind of organized and made sure he didn't win. Now, prior to Bloody Monday or Bloody Tuesday, there were talks openly on national television about if Bernie Sanders gets the most pledged delegates, they were going to contest the convention and just take the nomination away from him. And there was even that
another way
moment
they were
during
gonna
the
rig it. They were
debate
gonna do everything to
where
prevent
the
make sure Bernie
candidates were
didn't win.
asked, will you support the nominee with the most pledged delegates? And the only one who said yes was Bernie Sanders. In other words, everybody was going to challenge the results, contest the election, if it was Bernie Sanders. Now, there's another clip, also from Adam Smith, where he kind of says the same thing.
Joe Biden was not picked in 2020 because he was the only person who could beat Trump. He was picked
The
because he
election
was
was
the only person who
rigged
could beat
against Bernie and in his favor, as all primaries are.
because he was the
all
only person
DNC
who could beat
primaries
Trump.
are.
He was picked because he was the only person that could beat Bernie Sanders. Rightly or wrongly. And by the way, for the Sanders fans out there, I'm not judging. But that conclusion was made, okay? Oh my gosh, coming out of Nevada, Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. And people, just like they are now, back then said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. So they were looking for
It
an
would
alternative.
work, you stupid
And tip of the
fucks.
hat to Joe
Yep,
Biden.
exactly.
He had-
Bernie would have been much better. It would have won a complete blowout. And gee, if it wasn't for you all voting against him in 2020, we wouldn't have to be dealing with Trump right now because Bernie would have beat the crap out of him in
Yeah,
2020.
would have
He would have beat the
BTFO'd
crap out of
him.
him coming up. We wouldn't have to deal with him. And of course, do I need to remind you all what you all did in 2016? If you all supported
lost
Bernie
the election
in
on
2016,
purpose because they rigged the election.
Yeah, if
because
you
that's
all-
what they do. All DNC elections are rigged. So
if you didn't rig the primary and let Bernie be a nominee as he should have been, he would have destroyed Trump, and we could be right now in the last few months of Bernie's presidency for crying out, because he would have easily won 2020, and maybe after 8 years of successful progressivism, maybe the progressives would be the party in charge. Maybe we have an also progressive being the replacement for him potentially, and of course he would have destroyed Trump so badly that I think Trump would have just been ran away after 2016. We would deal with the crap we are nowadays. But you all emboldened him. So in the end, you're all the faults that we have Trump. The rise him and all of it. It's
And
all
remember
your
the
fault.
shame-
All you
remember the
corporate
shame that
Democrats
you-
and all of you that voted against Bernie in the primaries. Every one of you, Trump
Every
is
one
because
of you is responsible
you,
for Donald Trump.
and you. You have no one to blame but yourself. And if
yourselves.
if Trump wins, it's once again not just Biden's fault, but
all
your all's fault
it'll
too.
be all your
Everything
fault.
is all your fault.
And you do,
And you have no one to blame but
deserve
yourself.
what's coming to you.
But of course, they're going to blame us, the progressives, Bernie supporters, or third-party voters somehow for it. Even though third-party voters I've covered the last few weeks now to deal with this on Reddit, the third parties actually help Democrats more by fucking over Trump with their libertarian votes. But of course, inconvenient facts.
8 great years as vice president. And I've said this over and over again.
Okay, he's kind of repeating what he said, but yeah, he's saying Joe Biden was picked because he was the one person that stood between Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Party nomination. What he's saying is correct. Now, this isn't me crying over spilled milk because that ship has sailed. But here's why I think this is so interesting. The Democratic Party, one of the main arguments against replacing Biden is, well, there was already a primary and 14 million Democratic Party voters. They selected Joe Biden. Now, listen, that was not a real primary. States like Florida and other states straight up just canceled their primary. Ballot access was not given to his
you all
opponents.
didn't treat it seriously as it
No,
should
that's
have.
not necessarily out of the
I don't
norm
care if Biden was
with regard to
incumbent and all that.
Democratic
You still
Party
have to have a
primaries of
primary regardless.
incumbents,
He has to earn
but that
it.
doesn't make it okay. So voters really didn't get a chance to make their voices heard. And to the extent that they did, there was a significant portion of the Democratic Party's base that voted uncommitted against Biden, saying, we're not happy with this guy. He's doing a genocide. So I say all this to
Uncommitted
say
voter right here.
that when Democrats say, oh, if Biden steps down, then we're going against democracy. Shut the fuck up. It's
You guys don't believe in
disingenuous
democracy,
because
so I don't wanna
you
hear
all don't
it.
actually believe in that.
Yep, you people want a dictatorship, and you want you guys to be running the dictatorship instead of the Republicans.
And you want to help them win too.
Yep, yes,
And speaking
because they very secretly want to be in the gas chambers.
And speaking of saving democracy, if the polls, as we saw right now, show Kamala doing better against Trump than Biden right now, then maybe you should tell Biden to step aside because you're being so brain dead it hurts your chances of win, and have Kamala, who's not so brain dead, maybe have a chance to win better. Because in the end, if you care about winning, you gotta do what helps you win. But of course, you all don't agree with that.
To
Actually,
steal the nomination away from Bernie Sanders, if need be, in 2020 if he won. So don't give me this bullshit. Now, what I will say is that I don't support the situation where, if Biden doesn't drop out, the pledged delegates become unpledged and they just give the nomination to someone else. I
They're
don't
not going to do
support
that either way.
And credit to Kyle Kalinske, he made this point, which I agreed with instinctively, even before he brought it up. But like, I don't want to create this precedent where if you don't like the nominee, you could just steal the nomination away from him. Because if you ever get a good leftist who wins the Democratic Party nomination, you don't want the party to think that we're okay with them just taking it. If
they would try against
they don't
whoever
agree.
progressive takes-
So
gets
I
in
don't
charge
agree
of
with
the
that. I think that
Because
the
of course,
only
that's
way
all
to
part
get
of the rigging.
Yep, which is why we got to kick out all the people involved in the DNC.
Joe Biden out is to try to pressure him to drop out. And the way you do that is the same way you got Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar to drop out. It's got to be Obama, make the call. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. We're moving in that direction. Chuck Schumer is telling donors, according to Axios, even though he denies it, that he's okay with a different nomination. So I don't support just stealing or taking the nomination away from Joe Biden, because even though the primary itself was not robust, it wasn't fair, 14 million votes, that's still important. I don't think that you can just disregard that. But it is interesting that, a lot of the same people who were talking about democracy and how important it is, or who are talking about that now, I should say, they were singing a different tune back in 2020. And it's interesting that Adam Smith, of all people, is bringing this up.
Yep, absolutely perfect.
You
so
think you just
what do you
fell out
guys
of-
say about that?
Yeah.
Of course, them admitting that they rigged it against Bernie, but of course
Not
we already knew about it.
surprised.
We already knew about it,
Yep.
so this is like nothing new for us. So yeah, absolutely pathetic. But like I said, if you all lose, it's gonna be Biden and your all's fault. You could have supported Bernie in 2016. We could have had 8 years of him and have a progressive. We could have had the progressives fully take over the Democratic Party for good. We could have had you all in 2020, and we could have had Bernie run again in 2024 right now and be in much better shape. But nope, it's all your fault, and yeah, nothing else to blame but yourself. All right, so now on to the next topic.
In a moment, it is. Vorsh makes fun of Abolish police movement.
I've watched this video so many times it just keeps popping up. Of course, Vosh went after the Abolish police movement, and he actually, finally in that rare moment, actually is good for once. And his chat, surprisingly, well, actually I shouldn't be surprised because his chat's stupid, they weren't too happy about him being on the right side for once. So yeah, let's watch this. This was hilarious.
It's gotten to the point now where actually the more aesthetically revolutionary a person comes off, the less I trust them. Because like in all the time that I've spent doing this and in the time that I've looked back throughout history, it's usually been the louder revolutionaries who do less. Like it's usually the people who are the most aggressively aesthetically far left that burn out the fastest, that divest themselves because it gets too tiring or they cared too much, or whose ideas are, even if they're like morally, on the right side of things, like that's easy shit, right? Being morally right, wow, congratulations, I do that every day. The difficult part is how do you
Bosh.
apply your moral prescriptions to the real world? How do you do the things? Like, ask every American. Most Americans will agree on we should help the homeless. There's data on it, But then you ask Americans how to help the homeless, or whether or not tax dollars should be allocated, or whether or not this should be done, or that should be done, or an encampment built, or a shelter. Now it's difficult. Being
When
right
it shouldn't
is
be
the
difficult
easy
to be
part.
obvious. You do all those things.
Yeah.
Help the
Making
homeless.
things right is the hard part. And from a lot of people on the left, there's a lot of effort demonstrated to, belong to the former category. And a lot of lefties, even the ones that I consider kind of like annoyingly revolutionary and aesthetic, do a lot of good real world work. I'm not saying they don't or that they're all fakers. It's not about them being disingenuous. It's just that, an engagement with policy and compromise seems to be the way things actually change for the better for anyone ever at any point. Behind every major legal victory that secured a minority group their rights or protected some vulnerable group or whatever, you had lawyers, people who trained and studied on the, wonkish legal profession. They had to become nerds for the revolution, right? The assassination of Fred Hampton was written by the white lawyer who was primarily the legal shield of the Black Panther Party, and he did a lot of incredibly good work, and he was a fucking nerd, and he was working in that dirt, the legal arguments. How does he engage with this like a systemic level? Any idiot from the 60s could have said, I think the Black Panther Party is right and should be free, but it took a lawyer to defend them, and it takes policy wonks to apply all of this good. And people just seem disgusted with it, and I don't blame them. It is disgusting. It's vile, all this business with the genocide and of the Palestinians, engaging with all of this is vile, and it's an insult, I think, to anyone's moral character that they might have to vote for Joe Biden. But unfortunately, we just don't get to make choices in those terms.
Yes, you can. You cannot vote for either of them and vote for a party or not vote whatsoever. But, of course, that's where you're wrong, boss. You have a complete meltdown on spot. But guess what? It is valid. It's valid.
You'd be a freaking CIA agent about it.
And even though I'm voting for that senile old man like you are, I'm still getting shit from your audience because I'm not fully buying your argument. I'm not going to buy it ever. So
Stand, don't you? I'm talking generally to the people watching. Also, if you do have any kind of radical aspirations, it does make your job a lot easier if there are sympathetic people in office, at a local or federal level. I think your interpretation of abolishing the police kind of sums up the reason why it's hard to do both. I think having an electoralist mindset causes you to struggle to interpret how these things might be useful or indicative of possible change just because they can't immediately be voted for. Well, then tell me, Zexizi. What do you mean when you say abolish the police? What do you want changed and how do you want it done? Nothing matters unless you can get it done, right? So how does one get that done? Because flatly on a practical level, there is no abolishing the police. That's insane.
Yeah,
that would mean
an
inapplication of law in any given area, a city, a county. It's not practical. That's not a thing that's going to happen. So what do we mean? What policy? What changes? I'm not trying to spring this on you, or you're typing, I'm talking, there's a difference in how quickly we can get our thoughts across. But I don't really care about sentiment unless something good happens. Maybe the good that happens is people's mindset shifts, but to that end, how? Shifts towards what? What are we trying to shift them towards? What are we what are we looking to make them want to do, and can we do that thing? The point is that abolishing the police can't be done under capitalism, so people who want it are naturally open to socialism. And when you have lots of people who want socialism, you can do more things based on that. Like the next time 2020 happens, you can organize to effect real change. Well, if that's I disagree with the premise. I don't think you can abolish a police, period. Capitalism, socialism, some version of it under communism.
Police have always been around,
if you want
even in
to bring people
non-capitalist
onto
countries.
socialism, you should talk to them about socialism, not this roundabout
It doesn't have anything to do really with capitalism, for crying out loud.
Abolish the police, but we can't actually do that, so we need a socialist revolution, but we need people to be socialists, so we convince them of that with the abolish the police, that just, it seems to me very unproductive,
And of course, this obsession with trying to be socialist this, socialist that, revolution this, that. How about just simple reforms and not to be really warpy and silly? It's
very
not
detached from what people want and need. The thing is, though, I can't spoon feed you a solution. Zexizi, there is no solution. You don't need to spoon feed me. Please don't talk down to me. If these problems and the solutions to them are unfeasible, that's not on me for not seeing the light. Hadam, why are you being so contrary in chat? Anyway, the idea that the broader Black Lives Matter protests were some kind of referendum on socialism by way of that's just not true. It's ridiculous. People said abolish the police because they were mad at police. Most of them didn't have any policy prescriptions. Defund the police was more sensible, but even then it was too vague. Nothing matters unless you can get it done. And nothing got done back from 2020. And that wasn't because the Black Lives Matter protests were sabotaged by, liberals or whatever. It's because the protests were liberals. When liberals get in the way of your radical prescriptions, that's not them sabotaging you. You're the minority. You're the minority lone voice out against the vastly numerically.
We've had this discussion before, when Harry had his meltdown about this. 80 to 90% of Americans support reforming police, to end police brutality and racism and all that. It was less than 10% actually support defund or outright abolishing the police.
Yep.
You guys aren't a minority. You're not going to get what you want. Now, reforming police, which would do the exact same thing pretty much, that is more likely to happen, and some of that has been done and all that. And so it can be done. And yes, a lot of it, they're just butthurt about cops. I remember that one video that Kyle covered, that mayor in Minneapolis that had a whole bunch of protests, and he dealt with one of the protesters, and she was like, "We ain't want no damn police," and stuff like that. They were just angry. Remember, I think we covered it too when it happened. But they don't have a policy. It wasn't anything policy related. They were just angry. They just wanted like immediate change and all that.
A superior group of liberals in those protests who didn't want socialism. They wanted an end to police brutality. That's a solvable issue. But if you get it up in your head that everything's a referendum on socialism...
liberals don't want to do like everything else. On this issue, police reform, and a lot of Republicans want to do it. So let's focus on that.
For radical change, you not only alienate those liberals and prevent them from seeing the value of your cause, it's kind of chauvinistic too, isn't it? I remember all those criticisms that were made of like black people in those protests saying there were white anarchists showing up trying to make it some big like Antifa thing or whatever, when in reality they were just protesting more along the lines of, police brutality. Those protests weren't about that. I don't think the average black person wants police abolished, and if you do, then...
The polls show that not only do they not want that, the polls in black areas actually want more police fund. They want more police presence, which is the exact opposite usually of what they want, which is kind of weird, but that's what the polls show.
It's a very Twitter take. I'll say that
very
much.
Weird.
You go to the average black person living in a poor American neighborhood, they'll tell you, and the data backs this up, at the very least, they want more police because they have crime to worry about and they haven't been educated on the relationship between over-policing and the deprivation of neighborhoods. Like the crime bill was signed off on by black advocacy groups back in the 90s. It's a complicated issue. You have to meet people where they're at, and where people are at isn't police abolition, It's abortion. Right now, it's abortion, it's queer rights, it's unions.
Are more likely
you
to
meet
get
people
results.
where they're at, you make the arguments with them, and you say, hey, us lefties and liberals, we've got a lot in common, a lot we agree on here. Maybe we could get even more done if we implemented these changes too. Got to be a aspirational voice in their ear. Anyway. Okay. Zekzizi, I appreciate you coming on to well, I guess I didn't have you on to talk, though I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to it in the future.
As someone in the comments right there, Vosh basically says, treat people like adults and not like LARPy revolutionaries.
Appreciate you coming on the chat to talk. I don't mean to be disagreeable.
Like I said, quite a few of them were LARPy revolutionaries.
Yeah, because a lot of people on the left, unfortunately, are the same people that, unfortunately, like support Hamas and all that. They're very terminally online, Twitter takes and all that.
I really have no enthusiasm whatsoever for Joe Biden at the moment. If it's 4 more years, then that's 4 more years of relative safety. I feel like Chad is being mean. Well, what you have to understand is that...
And I don't feel like watching the rest of it. Just he's going to go into the Bernie bus, the crap he had to deal with 4 years ago. I don't feel like hearing that right now. So yeah, what do you guys say about that? Vosh going after these people.
That is surprising. For a CIA agent, actually, yeah, it's surprising that he finally went around them.
Yep, nice to see it. Nice to see it.
It's nice. Just wish it could be less of a snap. It could be less. And
of a smug piece of
CIA
shit.
agent.
And less of a smug piece of shit and all that. All right, so now on to the next topic.
And that'll be Russian assassination attempt on German arms manufacturer CEO foiled.
This is the 3rd time now that Russia tried to do some assassination or sabotage in Germany, and thanks to American intelligence, they were thwarted 3 times now. Damn, Germany, you need to get your shit fixed so this stops happening to you before they actually try dragging you into a war or something. So yeah, Russia tried to assassinate the CEO of Germany's arms manufacturer pretty much, and it failed, thankfully. So let's see this.
A Russian plot to assassinate the boss of a German weapons manufacturer was foiled earlier this year.
And the thing is, I find this weird. Even if you did assassinate this person, how would that stop giving weapons to to Ukraine? How is that going to stop? It's not going to stop producing weapons or anything. I just don't get it.
Thanks to U.S. intelligence, that is according to CNN. The broadcaster claims Armin Pappberger, the chief executive of Rheinmetall, was among defense industry executives across Europe targeted by the Kremlin. U.S. intelligence services passed details of the plan to German authorities. Pappberger has been a high-profile supporter of Ukraine's war effort, and his company has produced artillery shells and military vehicles for Kyiv. Our political correspondent Simon Young joins me now from Berlin. Simon, do you have any more details on this story?
Well, we asked Rheinmetall, the company, whether they could confirm any of the details about this alleged assassination plot, and they told us that they can't comment on company security matters, but that they are in regular contact with the security services here in Germany, and that they take measures as necessary. Now, it's worth knowing Rheinmetall is one of the biggest European arms manufacturers.
Because
a big
Germany is the
supplier
biggest
of
military
tanks
power in Europe
and
economic
artillery
too.
munitions to Ukraine. In fact, it says itself it's the largest maker of artillery ammunition
jealous that they can't
in
beat
the
Germany.
world. And this company in June just opened a joint
smug
venture
because they
with the
beat 'em in
Ukrainian
World War
state
II thanks
firm
to
to
us.
repair and possibly also build tanks in Ukraine. It also has plans
Vastly superior tanks
to
too,
start
whatever they have.
producing artillery munitions in Ukraine as well. So this is a company that is significantly involved in the Ukrainian war effort.
How have German officials reacted to this information about this foiled plot?
Yeah, what we've got so far is a comment from Annalena Baerbock, Germany's foreign minister, speaking at that NATO summit in Washington. She said that this is the kind of thing that Germany has been warning about for months, namely that Russia is conducting a hybrid war, she said, against Germany and the West, and that it just showed again that Europe must stand together and protect itself and not be naive, she said.
Maybe it would be nice if you all actually took it seriously enough to help Ukraine win. That would be very nice.
And the NATO Secretary General also commenting, saying that he believes that Russia is conducting a campaign against European and Western defence installations, and the purpose of it is to intimidate Ukraine's allies. Where he said it wouldn't work. In fact, precisely the opposite. It strengthens the resolve to push back against Russia.
Yeah, but these kinds of warnings, they've been floating around for as long as this war has been going on, if not longer. Have German authorities not taken them seriously enough?
Well, this is now the third time it's happened since April, so apparently not. And they need to start taking seriously.
Yeah, well, of course, the German government says it takes this threat very seriously. That it's doing all it can to meet this hybrid challenge, and that it's in close cooperation with international partners, and will do everything it can to protect its interests. But it has to be said, the list of alleged Russian attacks is growing longer. There have been cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, all in connection with the Ukraine war. Even the suggestions of a link between Russian intelligence services and a major fire at a weapons factory here in Berlin back in May. The European Union Commission says that Russia is targeting Germany more than any other EU country, and I think it all adds up to a sort of threat background.
You're all playing with big fire, messing with the most powerful country in Europe, pal. Russia, do you remember what Germany did to you in World War II? The 20 million plus people they killed? Like, don't push their buttons.
That is very concerning.
Yes.
Political correspondent Simon Young, great speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Germany is going to whoop every one of y'all's asses if you fuck with them enough. Like, don't try it. Just stop. This is so stupid. So, yeah, what do you guys say about that? Another internal sabotage foiled, thankfully. But,
no, that's a good thing.
Yep, because if you push too far, you're going to probably not only maybe make Germany more involved in it, you could potentially be at war with Germany, and that could potentially lead to all of NATO and all that.
Yep.
I mean, you're gonna get destroyed.
Remember what happened in World War One.
And World War II as well. Don't push it. Germany's powerful in you in every regard except nuclear weapons. Don't push it. You need to just accept your place. And all that. Like, you keep pushing everyone's buttons. Like, South Korea now just recently might start giving stuff to Ukraine directly because you're allied with North Korea now. Like, if you want to make it easy for yourself, you need to just drop out of the war, period. Alright, and finally, speaking of the war, time to cover a war crime now. As the other day, Russia attacked
Children's Hospital.
Not just that, they attacked 3 hospitals, if you saw what Dylan Burns covered. So Russia the other day They shot like 38 missiles into Ukraine. 30 of them were shot down thanks to awesome anti-defense stuff from the West, but unfortunately 8 got through, and 3 of them attacked hospitals, with one of them being a children's hospital. And somewhere between 20 to 30 people were killed, unfortunately. But of course, Russia, unlike Ukraine, as we covered last time, on purpose goes after civilians. So let's see this.
Just like Israel.
Ukraine's president vowing retaliation after a barrage of Russian missile strikes that killed at least 22 people in cities across Ukraine. A children's hospital was among the sites that were hit. Ukraine's Interior Ministry says that these strikes happened during rush hour, something that is rare because aerial...
Oh yeah, speaking of which, have you seen all the idiots like Jackson Dinkelberg and all those Russia's fucks lying about saying that Ukraine or America did this?
Of course they did. They believe that everyone everything bad done in the war is the fault of the Nazi terrorist state of the Ukraine, where every single person is a neo-Nazi, and the CIA, who they believe is omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent.
Oh my god, the amount of coping that they did about this is insane these last few days.
Of course.
At night, a day of mourning has now been declared by officials in the central Ukrainian city of Kryvyi. Well, Claire Sebastian monitoring this story.
Man, the aftermath, like inside a hospital, looked a lot like what Hamas did to Israel on 10/7. Very aggravating to see that again.
Story from London. Claire, just get us bang up to date with the very latest on the ground.
And of course,
Ukraine,
dumb leftist, fake leftist support both of them.
New numbers. This coming from the State Emergency Services of Ukraine, now saying that 31 people were killed, of which 20 in the capital, Kyiv, alone, and more than 100 injured. So this was a widespread attack, mainly targeting cities, extremely deadly. And according to several officials, including the defense minister, it was targeting people during the morning rush hour. So as you said, we're used to seeing these overnight missile barrages. This was in broad daylight. And the most shocking images we're getting are, of course, from the children's hospital in the center of Kyiv, the most important children's hospital, not only for that city, but for all of Ukraine, a very well-known place where people come to get the very specialist treatment that they need for some of the country's sickest children.
Innocent civilians?
Russia has come out and said,
yummy target for war crimes.
Defense industrial installations and air bases, and it has refuted claims that it targeted this children's hospital by saying that
murdering
it believes,
Ukrainians
the
and kids.
videos coming out
What
of Kyiv
joyful day!
The Ukrainian
so they
air
want
defense missile. Take a look at this video that shows that CNN is geolocated, and it shows the moment that the missile struck. I'm going to let you listen to that.
Oh yeah, if I remember correctly, this was one of the videos that dumb Russos on Twitter and all that were coping about. They kept like trying to pause on the video of the missile coming down and like zooming in and whatever crap. Like, aha, that was an American missile. America or Ukraine did this, not Russia. So stop blaming us. Like, stop capping. Stop. No one's buying your crap.
Mode save dilate.
And CNN has showed that video.
Yep, there it is. It's too blurry to see now.
Weapons experts who said it is consistent.
God.
They believe, on the face of it, with a cruise
Sounds
missile,
about right.
An air defense missile.
Yep.
Now, President Zelensky, as you say, has come out today
Smoke
and
me
said
mushroom
he expects
clouds
to see at the NATO
across
summit
Kiev in the
start
picture
on
from all the other
Tuesday in
strikes.
Washington. Concrete action from Ukraine.
This is probably, I think, the first attack in Kiev in a long time,
respond
too.
to this. The question here
Kyiv, I mean
is
to say.
whether our partners can respond as well. So
sorry for using the
obviously
Russian
a lot of anger and shock in
pronunciation.
Ukraine, and using this moment to call again for more air defense missiles and more support from Ukraine's partners.
Gee, after all of this just recently, and what Russia tried to do with Germany, maybe, like I said, maybe you should actually treat it like a World War II level threat without actually fighting and, I don't know, produce enough weapons to help them defend themselves, and also get rid of all the restrictions so they can shoot stuff into Russia directly when they fuck around.
Allies, of course. The
like they've been doing from the very
Polish
start.
Prime Minister in Warsaw. Ukraine's president has been meeting him. What's a key takeout from that meeting, and why is that significant at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, Ukraine is calling for support from all of its partners. We're seeing an agreement being signed in Warsaw today. And of course, this is a moment where we've seen that Ukraine's allies have been really tested in their support. The war is now in its third year. The front lines, while we thought that Ukraine had been able to stabilize the situation on the front lines with the injections of Western weapons that we've seen coming in, they did have a partial loss, a withdrawal from part of the key town of Chasiv Yar on the eastern front.
Oh yeah, I've seen coverage of this, but I haven't seen any map updates yet. But If all of you remember back in May when Russia did like some sort of advance in like the Kharkiv area, minor gains and all that for all those losses, apparently Ukraine's slowly been starting to push them back recently. But,
good.
Yep, but I haven't seen any map changes on it, so I don't know for sure yet. But that's what I've been hearing.
Which does put them in a more vulnerable position, even though they are presenting that as a strategic withdrawal. So Zelensky may end up, we haven't confirmed this as of yet, at the NATO summit in Washington. He is speaking to his neighbor right now, a country that has obviously been very critical throughout this war and providing support to Kyiv.
Good to have you, as Claire Spassins on the story for you. Thank you, Claire.
Alright, so that's it for that video. So yeah, what do you guys say about that? Russia committing war crimes, to my no surprise as always.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
Absolutely unacceptable. Which is why we need
they've done like endless war crimes. That's why Russia and Israel are so similar.
But again, remember, it's America's fault, don't you know, you stupid?
Yeah. You shit libtard fag. All Ukrainians are neo-Nazis, and and it's just Ukrainian Nazis versus Ukrainian Nazis to blame Russia to drag the West into nuking Russia. We want a unipolar world under China.
You're all just a puppet to the America in the West, so you have no say on it, remember?
They're literally Russian puppets.
Yep.
So, and Chinese puppets.
Yep. So yeah, guys, that was actually surprisingly very fast, like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Very surprising. I thought this video was going to be more than 2 hours like last time. But yeah, guys, that was fun and all that. And that's going to wrap it up here. So see you all next time for episode 108.